Hi, everyone. We are about to dive into the second chapter of logical fallacies. And this time we learn about logical fallacies of insufficient evidence. As the name suggests, these are fallacies committed because of the amount not enough to support a claim. So, fallacies of relevance in chapter 5 are in some ways easier to spot because of things that do not belong together. It is a little more glaring to have things in one argument that don't belong together because it nags at you. On the other hand, fallacies of insufficient evidence may require a little more attention from you because they are more dependent on the context within which they are presented, and they're also dependent on the degree to which the amount of evidence is enough or not, may be subjective. Yeah. So, how then do we decide that this is a fallacy that doesn't meet the requirement of sufficient evidence? We have to be engaging with fallacies to get better and better at spotting. But you will also have this feeling when you are presented with a fallacy or fallacies of insufficient evidence that something is being skipped, that the arguer is skipping over some steps to make a conclusion. Most of the time, it will present to you as something that is not quite enough. Okay, so there are 11 fallacies listed in this chapter, and I like to group them so loosely into three subsets thematically. So the first group deflects the burden of proof from the arguer themselves and puts the burden of proof to somebody else or even to the listener. They are inappropriate appeal to authority, false alternatives, also called false dichotomy, and weak analogy. So these are pieces of evidence that the arguer will pull from external sources. The second group tries to skip steps and jump to conclusions. They are a loaded question where they will ask you a seemingly one single question, but it is loaded with a lot more, and it is very often leading questions. Yeah, so the conclusion is within this loaded question. Hasty generalization, obviously, you will skip steps and get to the conclusion hastily. Slippery slope, where you present one thing and you make this illogical step to something different. And questionable cause, which is post hoc, and something happened and another thing happened. There may or may not be relevance or causation, but you think that as having some sort of causative relationship. The last group creates confusion around reasoning. So, inconsistency, you're inconsistent, so therefore the conclusion is kind of confusing. And there's composition where you put things together and come to a conclusion, or you divide things and come to the conclusion. And then there's appeal to ignorance. And there often appeal to ignorance has to do with double negatives. And so be aware of double negatives. It's very confusing, and two negatives don't always come out to one positive, just like two positives don't always come out to the negative. So it's something that you need to be aware of. At the end of this chapter, we will have learned 22 of the most common fallacies. So it is very important to be able to recognize these, not only because we want to be clear thinkers, but also because we want to be producers of precise and logical thoughts. Yeah. So I gave you a link to a YouTube channel using that uses Mr. Spock to highlight these logical thinking. So enjoy. I hope you're Star Trek fans. Bye.